All right. So are we live on YouTube? Yes, we are. Okay, and Ashima ma'am is also there. So, ma'am, we will wait for just one more minute to let everyone join the session. Then we will get started. Hello, Ashima ma'am. Can you hear us? I'm not the host yet. So, looks like
Mm,
Bhavna is still uh, fixing the settings of the Zoom session. Then,
No, I think I've been unmuted now. Am I audible?
yeah, loud and clear. Great. Okay. Okay, ma'am. So, hey everyone, I'm Anubhav Garg from LawSikho, and I welcome you all in our today's session, Oratory Skills for Lawyers. This is a very exciting and very exquisite session and very close to my heart because I always wanted to develop good oratory skills to distinguish myself from my peers, and I was never good at it until I joined LawSikho. And as a subject matter expert, we have Ashima Mandla with us. Ashima ma'am is a Supreme Court attorney currently practicing at various in front of various judicial forms. Ma'am has filed some of the most famous PILs of time, like community kitchen, pan India community kitchens, gender neutrality for sexual offences, and protection for Safai Karamcharis at the workplace. And she has also been an amicus curiae in KS Puttoswamy and Union of India case, which was about right to privacy. So, with this, ma'am, why don't we start with knowing your journey as a lawyer? Though I have asked you the same question in the previous session, but this time we have a lot of new audience coming up. So why don't you introduce yourself first to us and tell us
Okay.
your journey? Yeah.
First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to come back for another webinar with you. So, first of all, like to take the opportunity to thank you for this. Um, my journey as a lawyer, and I think I've reiterated this many times. Um, After law school, right after I'm so sorry. Um, so right after my graduation, which was from Lady Sriram in psychology, I wanted to be in go and study law and enter a law college, but my family was not favoring me on this aspect. So because they always had the kind of apprehension that you do for women in India, and this is I'm talking about nearly 5 7 years from now. My grandfather had put his foot down and he said that listen, nothing doing. You are not going into practice law because you have to go to district courts, and that is something that I wouldn't allow. It's not safe. So he had those preconceived notions, and as a result, it was very difficult to make him come around. So, however, what he told me that if I can promise him that I'll only stick to the corporate side of it, he will still allow me this relaxation. So, before even joining law school, right after my graduation, I had taken a 1 year gap year to decide whether it's law, which is actually what I want to do. And at that time, through his contacts, he got me an internship, pre-law internship at Trilegal Delhi, where I interned for about 3 months as a pre-law intern and got an insight into what exactly is working in a firm culture in a corporate world, and in my limited knowledge how law works. And I was very fascinated by it. So I thought that this is what I want to do, and I want to be a corporate lawyer. And the next 3 years, I'm going to aim and work and try and get a job at this very place. So at that time, I made up my mind that I'm going to end up working and come back to Trilegal and join there as an associate in the corporate firm, in the corporate culture. So next year, in back in 2014, I got my admission in law faculty, Delhi University, and my first internship was under Mr. KTS Tulsi, and everything changed in that internship because I, for the first time, actually fell in love with what law is and what you're capable of doing. What exactly does it feel when you step inside a courtroom? How powerful that exchange is, and that's the life I wanted to live. I was extremely enchanted by Sir and his knowledge of the criminal world, the criminal justice system. Of course, he is one of the best legal criminal minds in the criminal lawyers in the country. He's been appointed as an amicus in and as a public prosecutor of the CBI, and of course, he's a brilliant defense lawyer. So the exposure of that 1 month under him completely changed my perception. And the next 3 years, in the next 2 years, in remaining 2 years, I spent doing various internships. So under Mr. Salman Khurshid, Mr. Siddharth Luthra, went back to Trilegal twice and other lawyers as well to get a holistic picture of whether I'm right in choosing litigation as a career, or do I need to be in a firm culture? Because I feel that a lot of people uh, have this apprehension when they are in their penultimate year or the final year in law school. They cannot make this decision that whether they need to be in litigation or in corporate. So for me, my calling, the exposure I got, and ultimately I wanted to see myself stand there in front of the judges and plead a case. So I knew ultimately that I wanted to be in litigation, and I just did not want to uh, be sitting and doing paperwork. Not that anything's wrong with it, but I think everybody has their own calling. um, so right before, about 3 4 months before my final year examinations, I got in touch with Tulsi sir again, and I asked him if he would be glad to take me under his tutelage. So he was very kind enough to offer me a job. He told me that once you get done with law school, you're most welcome to come. So that's how my journey started. I started working with Tulsi sir right after law school, and I worked under him for a period of 9 10 months before I went independent. And that, in a very short and brief way, sums it up till right here.
Okay, lovely story, ma'am. So someone just wrote that audio is very poor. People, can you just type yes in the chat box if I and ma'am are clearly audible to you guys? Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are. So it might be someone's own device issue. It's not on our part. Okay, thank you so much. So, ma'am, let's after this lovely story you have just told us, let us right away jump into the pool and address how lawyers can develop good oratory skills. Like there is no shred of doubt that if you have to survive in any profession, your communication skills need to be impeccable. Whether it is pleading before a judge, or talking to a client, or reporting to a senior, or giving pep talk to a junior, or getting interviewed with LawSikho, oratory skills are must. A saying, a saying that lawyers are paid for their words is emblematic of how crucial this oratory skills is. So, ma'am, you had once mentioned to me that while speaking class or speaking in front of your teachers, you used to stutter a lot. But now you are appearing in front of Supreme Court judges, arguing against the counsels who are twice your age and winning, giving hours long interviews and lectures without any prior preparation. So, ma'am, my question here is how you pulled it off and how you made this stupendous jump.
So I'll also add on to this. I used to not only stutter and stammer in classrooms, I used to do it while talking to any person. So there was a bit of a speech problem, and I'd keep getting really stuck. And of course, it's taken a lot of time. And I'll just, first of all, before going into the story of what helped me, I'll also make it very clear that a lot of people think that if you only have to sit behind a desk and work in a firm culture or work in an office, It doesn't matter how my speaking skills are. And it's only people who are going to be there in litigation, arguing matters, and only be, and not even briefing counsels, and just arguing matters. Only those people need to be very, very articulate in their oratory skills. That is absolutely not true. Because the way you're able to speak, your enunciation, the pronunciation, your tone, the spacing between the words, everything matters. Because to that is the impression that you're putting out in front of another person. If right now, instead of speaking in a slightly, and I'm saying very slightly articulate manner, because I'm also having my jumps and breaks while thinking about what I'm saying, but if I were to start stammering and stuttering right here, all of you would quickly just go offline, and you wouldn't be interested to hear somebody who does not know what they are talking about, because that's what it comes across. When somebody stammers or stutters, or in their in their verbal communication is not very clear, and the choice of words is not clear, and you are taking too much of a time, it shows to the other person that you are not well prepared, you are not aware of what has been asked, uh, uh, what has been put before you, what is asked of you, and there is some confusion going on in your head, and that's exactly why you are not able to put it out. That is the impression that you have to avoid at all times. Whether it is that you are appearing before a judge, a jury we don't have over here in our system, whether it's in an interview, or even while you're talking to a client, while if you choose your words carefully, you speak in an articulate, smooth manner with proper pauses where it's required, and emphasis and clear words, and not running like a train in your tone, or not even being too slow that people actually lose interest in what you're saying, because you have to hold the other person's attention as well. That that shows that you're confident and you know what you are doing. Otherwise, the chances of you, if you have to understand this, that it's like your lawyers are marketing themselves at all times.
Precisely.
And I'm only talking about this profession because, of course, the intricacies in other professions, I am nobody to comment upon. But as far as I know about law, whatever little knowledge I have, it's all about marketing yourselves, whether to a prospective client, whether to an employer, or in front of the judge with your cause. You're always marketing what you're saying, and you have to be very confident. So, my personal problem was this, and as a result, it came to a point where one of my family members told me that because you're all not able to, speak properly, and you stammer and stutter so much, we don't think that it's a good idea that you get into litigation, because you will not be able to speak even two clear sentences in court. So, to change that, the techniques which I was made to administer at home were, and I'm telling you, it's very simple. Just take a newspaper, take a book, any judgment you're reading, and start reading it out loud. And read it out loud the way you're going to be speaking, not very quickly going through as if none of it is, so that it has to be so smooth and coherent that the other person who's hearing you for the first time also understands exactly what you're saying.
Okay.
that that preparation, to day and day after, if for half an hour, 1 hour, you speak out loud, your pronunciation, initiation will get clear. If there are some difficult words that you don't understand, and you feel that if you're going to be reading it out in front of another person, you will pause over there. If you read difficult words, things that you are facing difficulty with, you practice it every day. Slowly you will see over few weeks, few months, that things have become clearer. And also another tip which I was given, and I try to follow it as much as I can, and this is proven by psychology as well, that whichever language do we actually think in our own head, is the language we are the most comfortable speaking and answering in. So, for example, you ask me a very long question. Now, if I am to think about this in Hindi and answer to you in English, then that will be very difficult for me because I'll be translating in my head every word. And vice versa. If I'm thinking in English and translating in Hindi and speaking, I'll miss out things. So you also have to tailor yourself to the profession that you have. If your profession entails you more speaking in a particular language, then you also start deliberately engaging in your thought process also in that language. So in my head, if I'm thinking about something and I suddenly feel that, I don't have a particular correct word for this one particular emotion or circumstance, then at least at that time I have the time to look it up. I can Google it, I can see it in a dictionary and improve my vocabulary. So next time when I'm sitting with somebody, engaging in a conversation or answering to a question, things will be very easier for me. The words will be easier for me to extract and put in my conversation, as opposed to constantly striving to translate things. So these two techniques have helped me. I try and speak in one language as much as I can, the one I know, which I have to practice every day. And of course, your choice of television also, it helps a lot because you pick up new words, you pick up new words from listening to people. So that's why I keep emphasizing this, that if you want a career in litigation, for example, there's no better learning than going inside a courtroom, because you get to know the nuances of the intricacies of language, the way the judges speak, the lawyers speak, the language that they use, because legal language is a lot different than English. So these are some of the techniques which I've learned. And of course, there was one very valuable piece of advice that Mr. Tulsi had given me when I joined him, and he told me that our profession is such that we have 30 seconds to 1 minute in for presenting our case before the judge for the first time, and that is true for Supreme Court. In other courts, they may be giving you more time to plead your case, but in Supreme Court, such is not the case. So if you are not able to put across whatever you know or want to put across in those 30 seconds, 1 minute, in an articulate manner, you'll also lose the interest of the judge. So another thing which, as I speak, I'm reminded of to put it across, it's very important that you're very, very thorough.
Yeah.
And I'm going to digress and give you a real life example of what happened to me as well. So one of my very first cases that I argued and appeared was in Delhi High Court, and at that time it was before the former Chief Justice of High Court, Mrs. Geeta Mittal, and before her there was one public interest litigation on Safai Karamcharis that was listed over there. So as it was decided, my senior had told me that she'll be appearing in this matter, but at the last minute she told me that it's better that because you've drafted it, you know the matter a little better, so why don't you go and try it. And I was petrified, because I had, of course, assisted sir for 4 5 months in court, and I always thought that my job ends by making him read the file, the note, and the rest of it he has to see. So I was also not applying my mind how to come up with arguments. And sometimes you see lawyers speak in court and you think that it's so easy what they are doing. But when it came to me, I was up all night the night before preparing. I made these lengthy notes in arguments. I like a chronology of events I made, then the arguments which I'll take in pointers. But then I realized as I went up there, and at that time I was literally shivering and sweating, and my voice modulation was also quivering because, of course, I was very scared. It was my first time. This was the Chief Justice of the Delhi High Court. I'd never done this before. And the client, to make matters worse, the client was sitting right behind me. So he would, of course, see the entire performance and be very disappointed if I didn't get a notice in the matter. So I managed. to stand up there, have the courage to come up with one opening line in that matter, which I thought would uh, take the conscience to hit the conscience of the court. And once I had Justice Mittal's attention, then I of course mentioned the other points. But as I was trying to read them, she just told me that, listen, you should be prepared for this case, and I understand what you're doing, and it's something that I appreciate, and you're a young lawyer, so I'm giving you this advice. And in open court she gave me this advice. She said, don't read in front of a judge unless you're reading from an extract of a judgment or of an FIR. But if these are your own arguments, you are not to read from a pointer sheet that you get, a note that you get for yourself. That just shows that you haven't prepared for the matter and that you need assistance. And she said that if a lawyer is very well aware of their brief, then they will never need to read and to read out in court, and
Precisely.
the arguments will automatically flow.
Yeah.
So another, and I know this answer is taking too long because I'm covering a lot of things in it, but another advice which I can give, and this is something that has helped me also, and with time I've realized that now it's come to a point where I really don't even need to see the file in the morning before the matter,
Exactly.
because I try and, when I'm preparing the matter, I make my note on the side and I try and remember the facts as much as possible. Of course, remember page numbers and everything is stretching it a little bit much. Um, but if you know your file inside out, you know the concept clarity is there, and it's not just something you've just copy pasted and made, then you wouldn't really need assistance of anything from your paper. And no matter what the opposite counsel says or the judge questions you upon, you are ready to be grilled, because then you know your content, and automatically your oratory skills increase. They become better with that. If you know your content, also if you know what you're going to be saying. So that's another aspect of it. It's always not about getting your articulation right, but it's also getting your content right.
Great answer, ma'am. I still remember the day I was right there in the Supreme Court's canteen when media came to interview you after your PIL filed for the Pan India Kitchen, and you took them all without any prior preparation. It was very clear to everyone standing there that they caught you by surprise and you were not ready for the interview, but yet you totally nailed it. So that's from there it came to me that Ashima ma'am is perfect for the subject matter for this session. So ma'am, the three tips you have just given is one is to make the English reading an integral part of your life, reading English newspapers and English books uh, out loud out.
You see,
uh,
English or Hindi. I,
yeah,
I'm,
English or
I'm not
Hindi.
advocating that it's only English. That depends on where you're practicing. And of course, if somebody's practicing in district courts and they're more uh, uh, they're well conversant in Hindi, and
Yeah.
they feel that that is where their mastery is. And I know for a fact that this is something where I'm lacking. I'm not very proficient in Hindi, and I'd like to be. But if, regardless of your language, please read as much so that your vocabulary, enunciation, pronunciation, and the flow of your speaking skills also improves.
Yeah. So making reading an intrinsic part of your life is first advice.
And
Second
reading out.
advice, yeah, and reading it out loud, yes. And second is thinking in that language because it makes your speaking much more fluent as it cut down the time of translating it in your head. And the third tip was not using a paper or not using a file while speaking. So ma'am, all these tips mainly relates to your fluency in speaking. How about we also addressing the vocabulary part of the speech, because a lot of questions has come to us on YouTube stream as ki how to incorporate legal terminology in your speech. So if you can elaborate on that a bit.
See, again, in that, what we've discussed previously would cover here as well, because your vocabulary, if somebody is to take a dictionary today, now there is a legal dictionary wherein most of the words and the phrases are in Latin. Now, that's a little difficult given that Latin is not taught in our country. So we only know particular phrases here and there that are used very widely in the drafts and the judgments. And you can come to know if you read High Court, Supreme Court judgments that they place a lot of reliance on Latin terminology as well. But even to improve your Hindi or English for that matter, just reading words is not enough, or just reading material is not enough. If I'm to read like a very technical judgment, and some of the judges, they use very hyperbolic English, which you don't understand or comprehend what exactly they mean, the exact interpretation of it, unless and until you are to search the exact meaning of the word. But it shouldn't stop there, and you should not also search every word while you're reading it. So what I do personally is, if I'm reading something very technical, so while I'm reading, I take a pencil and I mark the words which I haven't really understood, and I leave them till I've finished whatever page, chapter that I'm reading. And then I come back to those words which I've underlined. Then I search them up, and if you download something like Merriam Webster or Oxford Dictionary, or even go online on Google, not only do you see the meaning of the word, but also how to use it in a sentence. So merely knowing its meaning is also not enough till the time you don't know how to apply it as well and use it in your terminology. So that's one aspect. And the other is, I've, from my personal experience, realized that the more drafts that you read, and the more judgments that you read, you automatically become very well conversant with English language, or with the legal language, if I'm to correct myself. Um, and when I started out, when I was with Tulsi sir, so obviously in the first few months, it's not like that I had some very major matters which were allocated to me in the office, because sir's of chamber has so many associates, and I was the youngest at that time. Uh, so what I used to do was, whichever file was lying there at the reception, even though I was not the briefing counsel in that, I'd go and read it, because we all have drafting plain uh, drafting, pleading, and conveyancing as a subject. But that does not completely teach you how to write a petition. It just gives you
Precisely.
the overall format of it, which also keeps changing and is different for different high courts, and in Supreme Court it's completely different. So just by rote learning those formats that are given in those books, that's not going to be enough for you. It's actually advisable that you go online, you subscribe to these online news platforms. You have Bar and Bench, Live Law, tons of other places that are actually uploading the petitions filed by the
Yeah.
advocates in High Court, Supreme Court.
Yeah.
You read, you read the judgments, and over time you will develop your own skill. So what I do is, whenever I'm reading a judgment and I really like a paragraph, and especially when it pertains to any constitution, so what I do is, and especially the ones which have like good English, or something that is a little bit unique
Yeah.
and not very simplified language, from any judge of the High Court or Supreme Court, I always copy paste it and keep it in a folder. So when I'm drafting, I always refer to that folder, especially the interpretations of fundamental rights. So then, you read those words, you read those sentences, automatically your vocabulary also expands. And by seeing other people also, and how they use words, how an emotion of which you may describe in 10 words can be actually summarized as one word. I think that is the beauty of learning in this profession, that every day is a new opportunity to learn.
Great. Great answer, ma'am. So the vocabulary part has also been answered. So the vocabulary part has also been answered. Phenomenal answer, ma'am. Uh, so, ma'am, now this brings me to my next question. What are the tips you would like to give to our attendees today on how should lawyers communicate with various stakeholders? Like if you can answer this question while touching upon various categories like communication with judges, communication with opposing counsels, with medias, with peers, junior clients, students, NGOs, etc. Uh, so that would really help us.
See, a lot of it, of course, has been covered
Yeah,
previously, but we can, of
yeah,
course, recap it and simplify it. uh, of course, there is always going to be a certain mannerism in which you are going to be addressing these various categories of people. When you start with something as low on the chart as your office staff, your clerks, the interns, you that communication, and right up to the judges, you on your everyday basis, you're communicating with so many people, and your impression is also coming across. The oratory skills are only not to be developed in order to do some courtroom performances or interviews outside, but on an everyday basis, the people you meet, the interactions you have with them, whether it's over the phone, over text, on WhatsApp, LinkedIn, anywhere, that's all communication. So these are our skills which we are putting out there. It makes use of our vocabulary, and as well as our etiquettes, and the way we are able to express ourselves, and that all develops with time, and ultimately it helps your personality develop as well. So you're always creating first impressions for yourself wherever you're going, because there is always new people that you meet in this profession, the networking that there is. So to start it off, first of all, you have to not treat it as something which is a mammoth task. This is इतनी कोई बड़ी चीज नहीं है. It's आप sometimes people are thinking about it too much, which causes them to be more scared of speaking in public, because it's all in our head. We see people in our classrooms, right from school, that when some students used to stand up and start stuttering, or gave the wrong answer and the teacher scolded. Those kind of instances, they over time start deterring us from speaking out loud, because then we feel embarrassed that what if what we said, what we are about to say is not correct, or what if immediately I freeze.
yeah,
That feeling that you get, palpitation, your heart is pounding, you're sweating, you're nervous, your voice modulation, your voice is hardly coming out, you're squeaking. And even though you know it, you know the answer, you quite can't find the right words, or sometimes you're just plainly stuck. This happens. It happens to everybody. It happens to the greatest orators in the world, because it's a very, very natural phenomena to feel scared, because you feel that people are going to judge you. First of all, you have to let it go. That's the only way. You have to stop thinking about it, because the more you think about this fear, the bigger it's going to get in your own head and deter you from speaking in public. So that confidence, it's not about the school you come from, the college you come from. It's all about what you can do, and how the way you can perform when you're given a task. And nothing can actually create that big a difference. It's all in our head. If we start feeling that today this is my disability, that see, I stammer, I stutter, and I have a problem speaking in public, so automatically you will have a problem in performing, because half of our fears are psychological. So the first is to, whether self motivational books help you, listening to lectures help you, that you have to choose your own method. There is no one way to deal with it, and people greatly differ on the advice that they give. But you choose your own method for that. That how do you want to actually tackle it? But the first step is you realize that you have a problem. Then you start improving by reading out loud, reading more, making your siblings sit next to you, making your friends sit next to you, your parents, and just start speaking with them. Converse with them, reading out loud to them, and ask them how your performance was. So pretend like you are a news anchor, or you're giving a debate on a television, and read out loud like that, and see and ask the other person to give you feedback. Because unless and until we don't get feedback, in from a space of our family, friends, it becomes very difficult because feedback from the outside world is criticism in our head that we don't take as constructive
Yeah.
feedback, and effectively we start taking it the wrong way, or it further hampers our sense of self-esteem. So you have to be very careful in that. It's the safest thing is that involve your family, involve your friends, tell them, see, I've embarked on this journey, I want to better myself. So you see more and more videos of people giving speeches. You see the world leaders giving speeches now. Thanks to the internet, we have access to all of that, and you see their tones, enunciations, pick up lines, pick up words that you think there are some phrases and words which you can use to describe any situation. They are so universal, so generic. Pick up
Yes.
those things, inculcate that in your own speech. Then, of course, read more and try and crystallize your own thinking. Unless and until you're not clear in your head, the impression that you put forward is also going to be very flimsy. And another aspect of being a good orator, and this is what I was taught when I was doing psychology, is that our communication, statistically, our communication is 95% is non-verbal. It's about our gestures. So a person who moves around too much, is fidgety, has shaking their legs, or cannot sit in one place, cannot make eye contact, his hands are going up and down, that shows that person is not confident. So your body language also matters. The tone in which you speak also matters. Where you go high, how you lower your voice down, the emphasis that you make. So that is where our enunciation comes in. Your non-verbal gestures come in, and then finally, after all of this, is what comes out of your mouth in form of words. So oratory skills are just not about mugging up something that, tomorrow I'm going to be speaking in front of the judges. I have a matter listed, but I'm not going to make it right now a list of arguments. It all depends on the mood of the judge, what they want to listen. If this was an interactive session, I would have probably amended a lot of these things that I'm saying, seeing your expressions and your feedback. So taking that feedback and changing your way of speaking also, you have to adapt. So there's this one gentleman who reached out to me on LinkedIn after seeing the poster for this session. He said that, we don't need a lecture on oratory skills. It can be done in 40 minutes. Anybody can learn how to speak. But that's mugging up. You cannot mug up how to speak in the real world, how to mug up to earn a living or save somebody's life, career that is in your hand. So these are huge stakes you're playing with right here.
Great, great answer. So, ma'am has also answered how to overcome the feeling of getting insulted or being mocked when you're trying to speak in front of a large audience. And she has also touched upon the non-verbal aspects of legal communication, but we will discuss it in more length in the later part of sessions. For now, ma'am, uh, after this very detailed answer, very detailed yet precise answer, my next question, the question which comes next in my mind is how much of role uh, English as a language only plays in excellent oratory skills for lawyers. Like we know, like you mentioned in the last session, that English is the language for Supreme Courts. And does poor English means poor lawyering or poor arguing for lawyers?
See, I'm no one to comment on that, but I can definitely tell you one thing that, of course, English is the only language. Uh, and the only, so when you're sitting in courtroom yourself, and you'll realize this, if a lawyer comes in and he is not very well versed with English, automatically you'll see his confidence level is down because he would have seen lawyers before him, some of them arguing in immaculate English, so articulate, and with words which are placed right where they need to be in a flow, and it's all coming so naturally to them because they've done it in and out for years. and decades for some, right? So you feel that complex that, listen, I'm also going to go up next. And if you're not very well versed in English or whichever language the court is practicing in, and of course in other parts of the country, the district courts allow you to also plead in your regional language, so it's a lot easier for people who are not very well conversant in English to appear over there. So that's also one reason why a lot of people don't want to come to Supreme Court, is because of the kind of English that is involved. So what happens is that if you are to go up and you know that you don't have in your own head the right set of skills to present your case, so first of all your confidence level goes down. Then secondly, you are constantly finding words, the right words to say, how to frame them, and that fear is that what if I forget, and what if nothing comes out of my mouth when it needs to, or what if the judge questions me and that answer I've not prepared for. Because the judges are only going to be speaking to you in English, the draft is in English. As a result, if you also start stammering and stuttering, first of all, the judges don't have the patience. We've already discussed that there's very little time, and they don't give you too many chances. Though a lot of encouragement is given to younger lawyers, but it can't just go on forever for you to recollect your entire matter. And of course, the judges know the law over and more than us young lawyers. So of course, that is always there as a prejudice against us also, that sometimes you yourself, if you're under prepared, it'll come across as if, first of all, you're not confident, you're not prepared enough for this, and you don't know your case inside out. As a result, automatically some things which could go in your favor will go against you. One or two situations like these, if you've lost an argument, a matter, failed to get notice in a matter, or an adjournment in a particular case, if that happens to you, your confidence goes for a further toss. It's a vicious cycle, actually. Because if one instance where you're not able to perform and you think it's because of your lack of articulate oratory skills has resulted in this, it will only add on to it, and this fear, this apprehension of speaking in public will only become worse.
Okay.
So yes, if you are planning to practice in the appellate courts, in high court and Supreme Court, it's never too late to start. It's okay. Not all of us have gone to the same set of schools by same set of teachers or paid too much attention to it. We all come from different walks of life, and I don't think that's a disadvantage. But the only disadvantage is when you know what your problem is and you choose to do nothing about it. So once you take it upon to try and change the scenario, your present situation, improve on your skills, your reading skills, writing skills, oratory skills, whatever that may be, and all of them are equally important in this profession. I don't think anything can stop you after that.
Great, great, great answer, ma'am. So, ma'am, a follow-up question on this: how legal English, that is the language lawyer speaks in front of the judges, and about which you have discussed a lot, is different from a normal English? And can you give us can you give this answer in 5 pointers?
I
The
don't
main
think I can
difference
give you
between.
in pointers, but of course, there is a certain way to address the court. When you start, you have to say, "May please, my lords." There is a certain mannerism. Of course, the terminology of how the petitions, the parties, plaintiff, respondent, that terminology is a separate thing altogether. Um this answer is, of course, a lot more technical, and I cannot on the spot just make 5 pointers for you. But yes, it is just slightly different from what normal English is when it comes to drafting, because the terminology that we use in drafting is it's a little more complex than the one which we have been taught. in our curriculum in school. So whether it's CBSE, ICSE, it's it takes a lot from the old English, um, that was used in the olden days. So, like, I actually am having uh, at a loss of words myself to describe this for you. So, my apologies on this.
Okay, okay, sure. No, no, no issues, ma'am. Uh, okay. So, ma'am, let us move on to the next question, which is, uh, public speaking or oratory skills is something we hone with daily practice. But on a normal day, we don't have an audience to practice with. We don't have a public to practice public speaking on a regular day. So, how can we practice this these oratory skills um, on the regular basis?
Imagine that you are sitting in front of a group of people. See, one we've already discussed is get the help of your family, start speaking to them. If your parents are doing anything in your vicinity, you just tell them that, give me half an hour, 1 hour of your time, and I'm going to speak and get their feedback.
Yeah.
In today's day and age, you, of course, like we are conversing right now on video conference, you can have the feedback, even if you get from two people, is going to be the same, even if you're speaking in front of 200 people. Because once it you are able to get the apprehension out of your head that I have to speak in front of another person, they will be assessing, analyzing what I say, and also judging me at the same time constructively. If you take that feedback and you're able to manage a few instances of speaking, first of all with your family, then your friends, then you move on doing it in your class. Those of you who are still in law school, please sign up for moods. That's the best way to try your speaking skills. It doesn't matter if you don't win all the awards, but that experience itself would at least tell you where your shortcomings are, and of course give you the impetus to improve your speaking skills, and answer in classrooms if you can. Or the best way, which I've done. So I've actually jumped from speaking in front of the mirror, switching on my camera to selfie mode and speaking like the way I'm speaking right now. I'm practically looking at myself and speaking. And if I don't swipe right, I'm just thinking in my head that nobody's listening to me and I'm talking to myself. Right. Because the moment, if I'm to see that, say, about 100 people are watching this as I speak and it's going live on YouTube as I can see it on my screen, um, I may just be at complete loss of words. So I used to actually sit and practice in front of a mirror, or take a camera, flip it over, and record myself and then play it back. And I did not like what I heard, and I thought that I was too nervous, too fidgety. I still am, and that's the beauty of it. No, I don't say that I'm perfect at the moment, but yes, that journey has been very long, and that's made me come a long way as well. So these are the few tips. First of all, if you don't want to uh, go out in the public and speak even to your family or friends, you think that they're also going to ridicule you or judge you or give you feedback which you are not ready to take, just record it on your camera and hear it. And I
Great,
think
great.
once you see that, you'll also realize where you're lacking.
Sir, great, ma'am. The same thing, the same question I asked to Raman sir. First, let me tell you that this answer was very amazing and very practical. And I asked the same thing to Raman sir, and he gave the same answer. But one extension he added is also upload that video on YouTube, because because from there you will get the feedback of other persons as well. Here you can improve your voice
He,
modulation.
he's a very confident
Yeah,
person,
speaker.
so he can afford it. But yes, if your main apprehension is getting feedback which you think you will not be able to take, so you don't have to plunge the first day. You don't literally make a speech right now, go upload it on Instagram, YouTube, and have your friends take a poll on it, and then feel disheartened if you didn't like the comments that they gave. Don't do it the first day. First of all, hear yourself, because he's very well conversant, and he's very fluent, so he can afford to put it up, and he takes so many interviews. So uh, he's no comparison for people who are still learning. But yes, start small,
Yeah.
hear yourself, involve your family, friends, your comfort zone, whose feedback is only the feedback is given to you from these people only because they want your betterment. So once you have that from a nurturing environment, some people you trust, then automatically you will it will not it will not affect your ego, your self esteem, and your confidence. But if it comes from from random people out in the world, it can actually deter you from embarking on such an experience again. So don't do that immediately. First, I mean,
Yeah.
slowly dive into it.
Understood. Great answer. So, only try this. I'm putting it as a question. Is only try this YouTube thing, uploading your videos on YouTube. Once you have set your steps in the language, and once you have developed that kind of eloquence that you can speak in front of at least.
I'm being very
Yeah.
candid with you. I'm myself don't watch my own videos, and I told you this before also. So
Exactly.
that level of confidence, even I haven't achieved so far. But yes, every day is a new learning experience, and with time, you tend to get better.
Okay. So the main method to practice the public speaking daily is to turn on your front camera, just start speaking or start talking about anything you know about, and then uh, listen back,
Yeah,
listen
I
to it,
mean, give
and
an
yeah,
imaginary interview
yeah,
as if somebody asked you a question and you are to answer. So make a scenario in your own head that whether it is any topic that you like, be it sports, politics, entertainment, or it's the arguments that you have to do for the next day. So just be the devil's advocate, cross question your own self and answer, and record that, and it'll really help you.
exactly. And these are the things also help you to nurture uh, the quality of thinking on your feeds, the quality
Yeah.
of using the right words at the right place. Also, that is improving your choice of words. So, ma'am, speaking of choice of words, there are many questions for how to debate better, how to counter the arguments presented by the opposing party. So, ma'am, can you give us some tips? Five tips for better debating. Yeah.
See, first of all, you have to learn to be very, very concise. And a person who goes on endlessly, adding one thing after the other, it just looks like you are making up these things as you go. So when you're answering to somebody's question, even though you're digressing, so when you're digressing from one topic to the other, like I'm doing right now, to give an example, this is called a desultory conversation, like you have in a circus, where you see from one pinwheel to another, a person is jumping. You desulter. That shows that you do not have the command over the subject on which you are speaking. So first of all, be very, very concise. Short and sweet keeps the attention of people.
Precisely.
Secondly, don't don't lose your eye contact when you're speaking. If I am to give you this debate, this interview, by looking down at my keyboard as I speak, I don't think that will be very appealing. And you wouldn't also want to listen, because you would lose interest. This is, of course, a virtual conversation, so I don't see most of you. Um, but that also is a way of catching somebody's attention when you're speaking to them first face to face, whether it's the judges or your client or the opposite counsel, giving an interview or having a conversation even with your friend. Maintain eye contact. The more you shifty eyes that you have, it shows that there is absolutely no confidence, and then you're hiding something, or you're not a very, very secure person,
Yeah.
right? So, and this is as per psychology what they say. You shouldn't do this. Then the third, of course, is maintain your body posture very correctly. You can't be slumping, you can't be falling here and there. If it's a formal setting, because you have to think of it that you are creating the setting as if it's a movie and you're placing yourself right there. You see, in every situation, there is every social situation demands a different kind of a reaction from us in terms of our posture also. So in front of a person who is much senior to us in stature, in age, we bow down. So you have to have that kind of grace. If it's in front of an opposite counsel, you have to stand tall. If you're giving an interview or any other thing, you have to you have to exude those characteristics of your personality itself. Now if you're going to be talking like this, slumped, looking down, and with your hands moving, your legs moving, nobody's going to take you seriously also.
Okay.
Oratory skills, we've already covered exactly how your vocabulary, your speaking skills, the methodology, a few techniques, and of course, you please read out on more techniques. I'm sure cognitive behavioral therapy gives you a lot of techniques to overcome these issues. I'm just giving you the ones I was personally improved, the ones that personally improved my speaking skills. So, three we've already done. Then number four is that you have to, if you are having a difficulty in answering something, and this sir told me that rather than just ranting on, trying to buy time, just take two deep breaths and ask, either you clear your own head or you ask the judge or the person in front of you that please allow me a moment to collect my thoughts. Or if you don't know, admit it right in there. Because you asked me a question, I told you I cannot answer this. Rather than ranting for 3 4 minutes, losing your interest in that of the listeners, I first of all make a fool of myself, come up with no concrete solution to give you, and lose your interest also in the process. So you have to learn when to take a step back, think very clearly, or to go ahead. If you don't know, it's okay, it's all right, just pass it over. And lastly, it's also, please remember that these are not um, things that you, if you practice them once or twice, that's going to be enough. So you can't just after this session be like, today onwards I'm going to start, I will pretend like an anchor, read out the news to my family in front of the camera, do it tomorrow, do it day after, and feel like 3 दिन में कुछ नहीं हुआ, it's worthless, I'm giving up, or in 3 days I've improved. You have to be very, very organized, meticulous, and do it with patience over and over again till the time you have made significant strides. And please take feedback from people, because we have a very different perception in our own heads, whether we think too much of ourselves or too little of ourselves. So it's always very important that we get requisite feedback from people also to improve.
Okay, ma'am. Great tips. So, just to summarize, first was to be concise with your arguments, be very precise with your choice of
Yes, eye
words.
contact.
Second is eye contact. The psychology says that don't, if you can't face someone, if you can't look someone in the eyes, then focus on their this part, the part
Yes,
between the eyebrows.
the
Then,
bridge.
yeah, exactly, the bridge. I couldn't recall the word. So, the bridge. Third was to, if you know the answer, then say it right away. And if you don't know, ask for time. Take your time to think,
Yes,
and then only open up your mouth. And
yes, and
fourth
body
was,
language.
yeah, and fourth was
Body language,
body
that
language.
your body language in general,
Yeah,
your posture, the non-verbal communication, 95% of it is done through your body language. So
precisely.
you have to, in different
Yeah,
situations, also have body language that is suited for that situation.
yeah,
Now, in front of a judge, when you're sitting in the courtroom on a chair, you cannot afford to sit like this.
Yeah.
There is a certain way the judge may sit like that in front of you. In a
No.
classroom, don't do that. That's disrespect. So that is also a part of communication. I'll tell you why. It may sound very abstract and foolish for me to point these things out right now. If you're coming before me for the first time and I'm the judge, or vice versa, you are the judge, you all are judging me today for what I'm saying, and I'm coming before you. And I have these quirks where I'm going to be lying back in my chair like I don't care, and scratching my head here, moving my hands, legs. Even before you would have heard me, you would have judged me. And if I am trying to act over smart, that communication would be hampered, whether it's in an interview or a client. If I'm showing hostility, arrogance, automatically my communication, the later on skill will, the oratory skills will also not save me from that, because somebody would have made a preconceived notion about me that this person is like this. So you have to, that's why remember this. And the fifth, of course, is please practice this over and over. It's not going to overnight just cure itself, or overnight you're going to significantly enhance your vocabulary and oratory skills.
Precisely, ma'am. And I don't know whether I'm qualified enough to add, but there is one very interesting tip I read on internet just now, that we associate depth with strength. We vote for politicians who have deep voices because we associate depth with strength. So try to speak at a very subtle pace and with a very deep voice, because then people uh, tend to have a better retention rate for your speech.
Then maybe that's why people like Batman then.
Yeah, precisely. Or take the example of Barack Obama. His voice is also very deep, and that's why Trump is not a very good speaker.
So you
Because
have to have uh, voice modulation. Of course, for
precisely,
women, I can't say that, make your voice
yeah,
very coarse and
yeah,
you can't have a baritone, right? But yes, you have voice modulation is very important, because if your voice immediately comes up in different, like, you can see a difference that comes in your voice. If it's modulating, it becomes too squeaky or too coarse and deep in the same sentence. People will also lose their interest in the conversation. So modulation is also very important.
great answer, ma'am. Uh, so this brings me to my next question, ma'am. We have addressed almost all the aspects of the verbal part, whether it is vocabulary, whether it is thinking on the feet, whether it is countering the questions which have been thrown you right away. So now, ma'am, let us speak a little bit more about the non-verbal aspects in the courtroom specifically. So if you can very briefly touch upon the non-verbal aspects for courtroom practice specifically.
uh, See, the courtroom etiquettes are very important. What you show in your, the way you conduct yourself. So of course you're aware, once you enter the courtroom, if the judge is sitting, you have to bow down and then enter. uh, Courtroom is not the place to exchange pleasantries. You don't start speaking with your colleagues around
Yeah.
you. In that also, if you're sitting and waiting for your matter, if a senior person comes in, please get up, offer them your seat. These are just the etiquettes. Now, how to also manage yourself is that whenever you see somebody you know, or a noted advocate, a smile never is always helpful. It's never going to be detrimental. So smile, have a very warm outlook. Even if you're going to be starting an argument, even if it's your opposite counsel whose comment you did not like, you losing your anger and choosing words which are mean or demeaning, it's not going to help your reputation. So try and be as calm as possible. Smile so that you come across as a pleasant person, right? And then, of course, keep your hands and legs as steady as possible and sit in an upright manner. You can't be slouching and you can't be completely slumped back in your chair, also. And of course, please do not be found browsing through the internet or replying to chats on your phone while you're inside the courtroom. It's a different thing if you're communicating with your office or your boss or your client. That's all right. But it's always better that you go step outside the courtroom and do this. It's not really looked, it's actually looked down upon when the youngsters come in and they're actually shopping online, sitting inside the courtroom, or they're playing games. If you're that bored, then perhaps you're you're uh, you're actually reflecting this from your behavior, that you know it all, and that you don't need the learning inside a courtroom, and that you're so proficient in your own practice that you don't think that it is required on your part to listen to what the judges are saying or what the lawyers are saying as a learning experience. This at the top of my head, of course, apart from what we discussed about eye contact, posture, your modulation. um, in addition to all of this, please be aware of these courtroom etiquettes, because people are always judging you. There are always first impressions, and you never know with whom you might end up working with or work up against, or somebody who becomes your senior, or somebody who gets elevated and becomes a judge and you start reporting to some person. So please, every day inside the workplace, your court is an entire workplace on its own. You have to represent yourself with the utmost dignity, and because that's all people are going to remember you by. They don't know what you are at in your home, inside your office, or in your personal life. What you do there in the public place is how they're going to also be remembering you.
Oh, phenomenal. Great answer, ma'am. Okay. So, ma'am, with this, I'm done with my set of questions. Ma'am, we are getting a lot of questions regarding the recommendations. Like, what book would you recommend for better public speaking? What are the apps you have just mentioned, and what are the websites? What are some dictionaries? So,
Apps,
if you can
websites,
tell us.
I've never done them personally, but what I used to do was, there's this book that comes, it's by the title of Greatest Speeches in the World. It's a book, so it's hardly about 50, 60 pages, and that gives you lines to pick up in public skills. I know somebody who's done this. This is not something I practice personally, but I know a gentleman who admitted that he watches all these shows, Suits, Boston Legal, Practice, which are based on law, and he takes on some of the arguments to be used in court from these TV shows. So you never know where you pick up inspiration from. You, I personally like to listen to Constituent Assembly speeches. I uh, Google speeches of the great world leaders, because that way, if especially you're doing something in public service, you're doing PILs, those kind of matters, it's very important you get a lot of terminology from their phrases from there, and based on the kind of litigation that you're going to do, pick it up from there. For like criminal law, read more judgments, read them out loud. Apps and books, I myself have never tried, so I cannot endorse anything to you. It can be any reading material under the sun.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, great. So there is one more question. How to read lengthy judgments in bulky legal document? So, ma'am, we have seen you that you are very quick with your thinking. Whenever a reporter asks you for answer, you have a very prompt reply in your head. So, ma'am, how you do it, and how you skim through all the bulky judgments in the matter of minutes? What is the way to correct way to do it?
So over years, I've developed this technique on how to read a judgment. At first, of course, when I started off reading judgments about 6 years ago, I used to read it word by word from start to the end to understand, because it takes a while to understand the legal language also, and whether after all the facts and the argument, what happens in the end, the conclusion, whether something's been upheld, dismissed, disposed of, those, that terminology you also need to understand. So the conclusion to a case also. So initially I used to read from line one, that it's a whether it's an appeal, fresh case, writ, to till the end, and including all the facts. Now, of course, with reading every day, this is not something at leisure that I do. That once in a week I'll pick up in something. Every day I'm reading something, whether it's for 1 hour, 2 hours, or 3 hours. That's my choice. Whether it's fiction, non-fiction, or judgments. The more you read, the faster your brain processes words. So even before you've read the entire word, your brain already recognizes that what it means, and you quickly start skimming through. So people who read more, and this is a psychologically proven fact about our brain, that things that are familiar to our brain, we skim through it very quickly. So you won't even have to read the entire word, but your brain has already read what that word is even before your eyes start reading it letter by letter. So that is one thing which, of course, with time will develop. And lengthy judgments, the only way is to meticulously read them. I, for one, do not in any way advise you to read only the legal key points, because that kind of journalism sometimes ends up, people end up reporting the wrong things also. This has happened to me personally in my case, where even though there were directions given in my matter, in 50 newspapers it came, it was dismissed because one person chose to read it wrong. So the ramifications happen. If you really want to understand interpretation, you want to improve your vocabulary, your legal knowledge, please read. It's painstakingly lengthy, yes. Sometimes you lose interest, definitely. um, for the lengthier judgments, like the likes of Keshavananda Bharati, which is to be considered as a Bible in Constitution, and other judgments which are also fairly 1,000, 1,500 pages long, take a notebook and start making pointers also. So once you've if you read in the SEC format, SEC gives you legal uh, point wise that this aspect of the constitution or this interpretation is from this para to this para. If you don't have it, it's all right. Just take a notebook and start noting down also, not per para, but wherever you find relevant holdings, observations, reliance on other judgments also. That way you'll also end up making your own compendium of cases. So tomorrow when you have to go and appear in a matter, you already know the landmarks of a particular, you already are aware of the landmarks of a particular
Hello, hello.
Am I audible to you?
Yeah, ma'am, we missed
Yes.
last few lines, so if you can repeat.
Yeah, so I'm saying that it also really helps you when you are doing going and arguing matters, if you have a compilation for yourself, and that compilation develops over years of the landmark judgments in particular sections, acts, streams of law. So if I know that section 154 CRPC is FIR, registration of FIR. So Lalita Kumari versus State of UP has said FIR registration is mandatory. And there are some certain exceptions. It's given several exceptions over there. Now, if a person comes to me and says that, you know what, मेरी FIR registered नहीं हो रही है, so automatically I won't even have to go anywhere. I'll just open my compilation and see, okay, section 154 says FIR registration is mandatory. Lalita Kumari is the judgment by the Supreme Court. And automatically I can tell the client, and my draft for their case also has already started. That makes it less time consuming, that every time a new matter comes in, you research from scratch. Read the judgments. Every judgment have every judgment has judgments quoted inside it.
Yeah,
So that will really help you in the future while you're arguing, while you're drafting, and over time you'll understand the law. It's not going to happen in 3 years. It's not even going to happen in 10 years. So you'll be learning till the rest of your life, for the rest of your life.
great answer, ma'am. Though it is very modest of you to say that that you are not versed with the speaking skills, but now we have seen that how good of a speaker you are.
No, please.
So
I've stuttered and stammered so much and been at a loss of words for more instances that I can actually recollect. But that also shows you that this is what happens when you're trying to have a candid conversation and not have a list of set of pointers in front of me from which I'm speaking.
Yeah, great. So, ma'am, with this, I have opened the forum for attendees to ask the question. So, people, now you can unmute yourself and ask the question on live chat. So, yeah, go on. Ma'am is now all yours. Balaji, yeah. Hello. Yeah,
Hello.
Balaji. Balaji, do you have a question? Hello. People, if do anyone has any question? I don't think so. Let
I
me.
do have a question.
Yeah.
Hi, ma'am. Good afternoon. I'm Prerona Basu. I'm just a first year law student from a non LLU background, obviously. Ma'am, what do you prefer for a student to practice in the very initial years of a law school so as to gain expertise in legal language? Because my law school being a non NLU from non national law school background, I don't have that much of an exposure. I have to rather go to competitions in different law schools, etc. So, ma'am, what do you prefer us it to do or in legal aspects as well in written and legal aspects so as to gain expertise?
Ma'am, I'm also from a non LLU background, so that's not going to put you in any kind of a position which is not at par with the NLUs when it comes to the profession. Like we've already discussed, of course, it's a great thing that you're going out and venturing in competitions, and especially moot court being one of them, which gives you great insight on how to research and speak in front of judges. And that's a holistic experience when it comes to that. I don't know if your college has extempore where you just have to speak on any given topic immediately. Uh, but apart from this, you read as much as you can, you intern and try and intern with lawyers who uh, themselves are teachers. Because initially, we do need certain associates, our employers, to guide us. Uh, and I know that on an everyday practice forum, it is very difficult. It's better. It's easier to say this than actually it's easier to preach it rather than to practice this on an everyday basis to teach students who come in the modalities and the realities. But yes, if you're able to find somebody, some lawyer who can guide you through the entire process, then that will be of great help to you, apart from you keeping up your end of constant researching and practicing your skills and attending courtroom proceedings to also observe how the other lawyers speak.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, Vivek.
Hi. Ma'am, right now I'm working in a law firm, ma'am, but I plan to practice in near future. Considering the present financial situation as well as my family background, I can't just move to litigation in maybe in a year or two. So, ma'am, considering my long-term plan is litigation, would you suggest at the same time working in law firm, should I start reading more of CPC, criminal law practice, or I should get over with law firm and then I should start practicing, ma'am? Just I
See,
want your
um,
guidance on this.
it actually depends on the financial position that you're in. I'll be very honest. I believe that only those who know that for 6 months, 1 year, their family can take care of them financially should plunge into independent practice in litigation, because um, there are financial hardships to the extent that you sometimes you just don't know whether a matter is going to come to you or how much a client is going to pay you. I know for a fact that when I started, for the first 2 3 months, there was no new matter that I had. Um, it takes time for your clientele to build, and even if you have a matter or two, the hearings don't come for months. So the gap between hearings is also there. And we cannot just think that in the first year or two we are going to have matters every day listed in court. So that's a lot of work. You have to have a lot of networking for it, and to retain a client is also very difficult. And I'm not discouraging you from going independent, but if just go when you feel that even if you don't earn anything substantial and you just are able to barely make it even for your everyday expenses to just going to your office, court, and coming back, and your family can maintain you for 6 months, then only do you go independent. And in the meanwhile, nothing should stop you from expanding your knowledge, read more. And I know that people who are in firms, they have a problem in terms of they cannot come and appear in matters in which the firm is not engaged. A lot of those firms don't allow you to appear in personal matters, but that cannot deter you from attending court once in a while. And of course, using your free time to read more and more. But it's a personal advice, because I also went independent within the first year
Yeah.
of joint practice. But I did it because I know that even if I don't earn for a year or two, my family can take care. But having said that, um, I'll also tell you that ever since I've gone independent, I've not taken money from home, because then you will always be complacent thinking that your family can take care. So it's good to know that there's a fallback option, that they can take care if that day comes. And these are very unprecedented economic times, because we all are sitting at home. There is very little work for people out there, and who knows how things will resume and when things will resume. Those are very, very important questions which none of us have the answers to. um, but yes, if you even go with the fallback option, you cannot afford to be complacent. Otherwise, you'll just be stuck. And I can say this from personal experience. I've seen people, and I don't want to name them because that's very unbecoming of a person. Um, in people who've been in the profession for 12 years, who've been working under reputed people and still not able to appear in court, because that complacency comes in. It's not that they are not capable, but if your job is, if you go to office every day and you're totally sitting, there's a disturbance from somebody.
Sorry, ma'am, I have muted
No
him. As
problem.
asked, please
No
don't do
problem.
this, people. It really hampers the flow of expert and disturbs everyone in the session. If
So
someone do it again, I have to remove that person.
what happens is that even if you're working under somebody and you go to office every day, you in your head think that, my work is only limited to drafting or briefing, and I don't have to bother about arguing. So when shove comes to push and you're put in that uncomfortable situation where you have to actually stand and appear, then that complacency actually deters you from performing, because then there is suddenly too much pressure. So whatever mistakes you make in the first 5 years, the judges are also going to be very forgiving, because they can see a young face trying, and they really do help you. Sometimes the judges really encourage you. And even if you go and try and take a passover for your senior, some judges explicitly tell you that you read the file, we'll give you a passover, but we want you to come back and appear. So that more and more people who are choosing to be in litigation actually come in court and speak, and just don't lose this opportunity, because beyond a point, then you get either too complacent, or that fear also starts in your head increasing by the day. So I can only advise this to you, that when you feel that you're financially comfortable to be without any salary for 6 months, and you can live off your savings or your family money, go then, not before.
Great
Ma'am,
answer.
I have a question.
Yeah, before someone asks any more questions, I have to ask Ashima ma'am whether she can entertain more or not, because she have other business to take
Yeah,
care of.
just 5 more minutes, please. My battery is also running out now.
Yeah.
Ma'am, I have a
And
question.
one more thing, please ask your question if it is relevant to the topic of the session. Like the previous one was not. It wastes the time of other attendees. So if it is relevant to the session, then only go
Yeah,
ahead.
apart from these, anything that's not related to this session, I'll of course be leaving my email address
Yeah.
at the end. You
Yeah.
can reach out. You can add me on LinkedIn. I try and respond to everything that comes my way. But we can't keep holding more people here, and my battery is really running out right now.
Yeah.
So 5 minutes, please.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, Sneha Singh, please
Ma'am,
go on.
ma'am, I'm in first year of law college. I'm asking how to get internship in good law firms like Riley given the
Ma'am,
first year.
This is
intern,
not
I've
relevant to
heard
the
that.
session, ma'am. So sorry,
Hello.
but we
I've
can't
heard that
attend
one
this one.
Hello.
Yeah. Yeah. Who is this guy? Please go on. Yeah.
Mahavir here.
Yeah, please go on, sir.
दो
Hello.
बार लग रिलेशन नहीं
Yeah, sir, please go on.
Yeah. So my question is directly with regards to the. So ma'am has wide experience in terms of the litigation practice, and she's vastly experienced with public interest litigations too. So ma'am, how do you go about so in the very beginning when you get a case, any public interest litigation matter, how do you go about running that case from directly from the, because we believe in the fact that all the cases start right from the right in the office and then it just partly get distributed in the court. So how do you prepare for any kind of public interest litigation at the first place, ma'am?
see, this question is
Well
not
said.
relevant right now, but
Yeah.
I'll answer it very briefly.
Sure, thank you so much, ma'am.
It's not just public interest litigation, it's any matter, any kind of litigation for that matter. You have to do your background research. It's of course a lot more difficult in PILs, and I'm genuinely saying it. I know it sounds absurd, but PILs are more work than appeals, because in appeals you have the documents in front of you, you have a judgment, or you have an FIR or previous documentary evidence to rely upon, and all you have to research is on the application of law, the statutes involved, and most of it which we are already aware of. In PILs, because they are stemming from the constitution, the fundamental rights, the first thing you have to do is get your chronology right, read about it, what articles are out there, your newspapers, reports, and other sources. Make your list of dates to show that on what date what happened, so the story emerges in your head. Then you go pick up a constitutional commentary, see the issues that you're involving, like we talked about community kitchens, that's right to food. So right to food comes under 21, that's fundamental right. So then you go and research online and see that what has the court said about that particular right under that particular article in different judgments, and then you start drafting it, and then hopefully the court entertains. But please, this has become an increasing trend which the court also has taken note of on various occasions. Don't use your free time to make PILs. Only make them when there is some severe thing involved that affects people at large and is also feasible. Because it's better that you shoot down an idea which you're only doing for newspapers. I know I am. It's very ironic that I'm saying it, because I've also gotten a lot of coverage thanks to this, but that was not the reason for doing it. And I know that some of you may not believe it, and that's all right. For the fact that court can see your intentions, and if they feel that this matter is only been taken up to gain any advantage from it, and I'm telling you this, they remove counsels in cases. They can have an amicus, appoint an amicus, and let you go entirely. If you are the petitioner, also they can change the petitioner to the bar association of that particular court. So do it only for matters in which you personally feel there is an intervention of the court which is feasible, which has a similar thing has been done previously. So there are a lot of aspects to that, and that should just not be a way to get some shorthand publicity. Frankly, because I'll also be honest, none of the PILs have resulted in me getting work in my field. That only depends on whether I can perform in my criminal litigation. If my client, if I tell them that I'm doing this social work, they'll be like, that's your pro bono work and what you want to do. Why should that encourage me to give you money to represent me in a case that is a matter of life and death for me? So that sums up.
Great answer.
This is my
Great answer,
personal
ma'am.
advice.
Yeah.
Yes,
Ma'am, this
may
is
I
just
know
one more question. I request you
how?
to take one more question. Mahesh
One
then
last question.
Mahesh sir has
Yes,
one.
Anubhav.
Yeah.
Ma'am, how you maintain
Ma-
your compelling diary of citations?
Yes, I make a compendium. I've started working on a compendium when I was in law school. So all the judgments that I read, which were there in my course, researching for moods and other points of research, drafts, cases I've worked on, whatever comes across, and even sometimes this habit has been inculcated in me by my colleague. She has a habit of going to court and listening to matters, and if any citation is used even by lawyers in another case, she notes it down. So, so as to you keep preparing your compilation like that, and it really helps you because you know the law on your tips. And as a result, when a client comes in, you give a good first impression, and it really helps you um, in the direction in which your draft is going, and at a later stage to convince the court, because you may emphasize on facts as much as you want to, but if you have a precedent in your favor, that too, especially by Supreme Court, then half your battle is won. So your research skills are also very, very important, but that's a different session altogether.
Great session, ma'am. So with this, we have to end the session here because we also have other webinars lined up, and Ashima ma'am has also unmuted himself now. And Ashima ma'am also has to go to also has to other business to take care of. So
Yes,
with this, yeah,
I'm Anubhav, I'm messaging you my email ID.
yeah,
If you could just use it and just share it with
yeah,
everybody.
yeah,
Anybody who wants to has any other queries apart from this,
yeah,
please feel free to write in. Thank you so
yeah,
much for bearing me
yeah.
for an hour and a half.
Let us take the our feedback also, ma'am. So people, can you guys please tell us how much you like the session on the scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being the lowest and 5 being the highest in the chat box.
Yes, please. I'd really like to know.
Great. So anyone would like to come live and briefly, just in a matter of 1 minute, tell us what he learned out of the session? Anyone?
Yes, may I?
Yeah, sure, please.
Yes,
Amit sir.
Anubhav, can I?
Hi.
Amit sir.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello.
Takeaways.
Am
Yes,
I
sir.
audible? Yes. I really appreciated, the guidance of ma'am, and it was really wonderful and worthwhile. I have been reading books, and as ma'am referred, I have been watching TV shows, serials, and you pick up the lines and phrases, and it really worthwhil. I felt that I invested this 1.5 hour equivalent to 10 books. So it's really good. And I used to listen many assembly speeches like Scottish Girl, Mary Black, Suit Serial, White Collar Crime, the character Harvey Specter. You might be heard about him.
Yes.
So I really appreciate and influenced by these characters. I want to become like the same person to argue before the court, having the same characteristic or personality. So how I'm trying, and just push me on that way. So very thank for your guidance. I want to become more like,
My pleasure entirely. And
thank you so much.
as long as you have the confidence for it, that there should be nothing that will deter you from being Harvey Specter in court.
Yes, thank you so much, ma'am, for interaction. Lovely.
Most welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. And I unfortunately have to
Yeah.
end this
Take the
session.
leave.
My battery will end sooner otherwise. So thank you so much,
Thank you
Anubhav.
so much for everyone for being here, and it was a lovely session. It was lovely interacting with you guys. Thank you, and thanks a million to Ashima ma'am, that she, despite of being so busy with clients queries and dealing with all the online litigation she is working with, she still gave us the time. So with this, it's time for us to bid you guys adieu. Okay, bye people, break a leg, have a good day.
Bye.
Okay.